Lamella, lovely cushion header. But Gerrard, you beauty! Balotelli, Aguero! I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. Here he is again. Here he is again. It's astonishing. It's absolutely world class.
There you go. Alright, it's Coaches Don't Play, episode 2. We have the man, myth, legend, Craig Mackail Smith, former England C, Scotland, St Albans Olsey, there's many more. In this podcast, Matt, I just want to talk about just your career from like start to finish.
Okay.
Like any stories, just sort of your career as a whole, because you've been around, didn't you?
Yeah. It's been a long journey. I've come obviously through the non-league route all the way. Lucky enough to play international football. Didn't quite make it to the Premier League, but played in almost all the leagues down to non-league. Scored in every level I've played at. So it's been a great journey. It's been lots of ups and downs, and now I'm not retired, but I'm still playing semi-pro football. But now I look back at it. There's lots of things I wish I'd have done, like back in the day in my career. When I look back at it now,
yeah. Do you have any regrets?
Just I think mentality-wise, probably like sometimes I was very down on myself, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So when it didn't go right, it was I instead of kind of appreciating what I'd done, there's always something more to do, and it wasn't quite right, and it wasn't good enough. Yeah. Which I think ultimately probably cost me the chance of playing in the Premier League. I think it was too much kind of, I was trying to get to the Premier League as fast as I could, and when it wasn't kind of going my way, that became like the end of the world to me, which then obviously in turn it made my performances worse. Whereas kind of looking at it now, if I had just taken a step back and realised how well I was actually doing, and then kind of enjoying the process at that moment in time, I think I would have gone on to play in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, you were close as well when you were at Brighton as well, but we'll get onto that later. I want to start out at the very, very start, St Albans.
Yeah.
Because you're in the youth academy then, and I think I've got it written down here. I think it was, where is it? The 10th of March 2001 against Billericay. You've made your debut.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me. Were you nervous?
Yeah, like it was. I was excited and nervous. Obviously, I'd gone and played like Sunday league football, and I'd played for that kind of, as you say, then it was like a Wednesday team, but it was like the academy for St Albans.
Yeah.
And 16 years old, and obviously getting the opportunity to play men's football, and it was really exciting because it's kind of like, I'm on my journey now. I'm on my way to pushing into the league and trying to reach my dream. So it was nerve-wracking because obviously 16-year-old lad going to play against men who don't really see that age. When you step on the pitch, they'll kick you and do everything they can to win the game. But it was a great experience. It was obviously, I think John Kendall was the manager at the time, so I'm obviously very grateful for him to believe and trust in me, and obviously to kind of just play for kind of, it was like my local team. I was born in Watford, and my granddad and nan lived in St Albans, so it was just lovely to kind of do that, and then obviously see my name in like the back pages of the local paper and stuff was great.
Yeah, I mean, for a 16-year-old, I mean, I'm 17, 18 next month. I can't. I think I've technically played for a men's team.
Right. Okay.
It's last year. I think it was last year pre-season. We had it's the under-18s versus the vets, and we had a lot of new players. And the manager goes, "So right, Tyler, mate. We don't see. We've seen you've been playing for a few years, so we don't need to look at you." And they're down a man, so can you just go over there and just sort of go in their team? I'm like, no, boys, sure. So there's about like 30, 40-year-old men. Go, yeah, you what, boys? Can I play centre half?
It's a good experience. It's good learning. It makes you get out of your shell and like kind of you've got to be on the spot and learn things, because I think that's the only way you can do it by experience.
Yeah, the big thing I noticed is because playing that sort of the older age group, they talked to me a lot more. They said like when you're there, do this or just drop back a little bit, and that communication sort of really helped me.
Experience, you can't buy experience. It's something you have to learn, and obviously for younger players playing with older players, no matter what level, they've always got these little bits of advice and these little kind of nuggets of information that will kind of help the younger players develop as they get older.
Yeah. So would you say that time at St Albans, was that like a massive was it a massive learning curve going from sort of like a youth team football to then going to the men's?
Yeah. I think like the expectation within the youth team football wasn't massive. Like obviously it's disappointing losing games and like bad performances, but obviously as soon as you step into that level, obviously it's people are playing, they're getting paid for it. It's a lot more serious. So it becomes obviously when you're playing with the kids and stuff and those age ranges, it's enjoyment. When you get step up, it becomes a little bit more serious. So I learned obviously that side of it. The physicality was a big thing, playing against kind of full-grown men who, as I said, don't take any prisoners at that level.
Yeah.
They're all playing to win. They're all playing to do well and get out of that league or get a move. So there's no prisoners taken. So it taught me a lot. It wasn't like it was enjoyable, but it also wasn't in the fact that I didn't really play as much as I was hoped to.
Yeah.
When I kind of stepped in, I thought this is going to be like my trajectory. I'm going to come in and I'm going to play really well, and I'm going to go on from there. And there was kind of changes of managers throughout that period of time. And looking back at it, to be honest, I was very, very raw. Like things I could get away with in kind of academy football, I couldn't get away with in kind of the first team football. So it was just a big learning curve, and also it taught me about disappointment as well, which is what you need. I think life isn't always kind of an upward curve. It's lots of ups and downs, and I think it just taught me that you kind of got to work hard. Sometimes it's not going to go your way, and it's just persevering.
Yeah, no, that's so. I think that'd be like a massive sort of. I think it'd be like losing and like having those experiences would be good for players such as like your age at the time. Sort of, you'd be like my age.
Yeah, anything adult football, like getting out and playing non-league football and lower league kind of football is amazing, especially for the academy kids now. Like they live in a bubble really. Like academy football is very kind of, it's beautiful football. They pass and they move and they do all of these great things and it looks wonderful. But as soon as you step on a pitch, lower league pitch, non-league pitch, non-league players, all that goes out the window, and it ultimately becomes about how much you want it, how much you graft, how much grip you've got in you. Like you have to learn to play on different surfaces. You have to learn to play at different venues, different pitches. So I think for academy players, like no matter what level it is, it might not seem great if you're going from a kind of a Premier League, Championship academy down to the league, but the experience that the players would get is invaluable.
So I put you in the spot. If you're a manager at Premier League Brighton, your former club, and you have a few youngsters, would you rather them sort of stay with the club, that youth system? Would you rather them go out sort of League Two or maybe lower?
No, yeah, I'd want them to go and get experience. There's nothing like experience. As I said, you're in a bubble in the academy world. You're playing kind of against, most often you're playing against lads that are pretty much your same age and physicality, and it's very easy. There's not too much on it. You kind of, obviously they do play for league positions and stuff, but realistically it's more about their development than it is anything else. Whereas you step into the non-league scene, you step into the lower league scene, it's people livelihoods, it's people who want to achieve, people who've got ambitions of playing at higher levels. So it becomes a whole new ball game. You can see, I think like Ben White went out, he was playing at Newport County. I think I played against him when he was at Newport County, and then he went out to Leeds, and then obviously he's doing fantastically well.
Been linked with big Premier League clubs like Liverpool and clubs like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot like that. There's a lot of players that like I played with Abiri Eze.
Did you?
And he like you could tell what an amazing talent he was. But like he obviously came to Wickham, like he was very humble. He came and learned, and obviously Wickham at the time was well, same now anyway. They don't play football really. We were going long to Akinfenwa and playing off of him, and so he had to learn the different sides of the game. And obviously then he went back to QPR, done fantastically well, and then he got his move to Palace, and he's shining in the Premier League. So it shows how important it is. It's not something to turn your nose up if you're an academy player. I think it's something to kind of go out and learn, bring those kind of ideals back to your club that you're at, and implementing them into your game.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I do see you do see a lot of players with like there's Liverpool centre half I forgot Williams. I think I think last season he was at Kettering, and now this season he's playing in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So from that, I mean, for a young lad like him, that must have been, I mean, it's mental, really.
Yeah, there's so many different pathways, and like there's obviously very, very talented academy players that go through the academy and go straight into the first team, but a lot of players don't do that, and a lot of players don't have that opportunity, and especially if they drop out of the game or drop down the leagues and they've never done that, it's a complete shock, and that's why a lot of academy players, when they do drop into lower leagues, they don't really go on to maybe do too much, because it's a complete culture shock going from what they get at the academy to what they get in the lower levels.
Going back to so you're at St Albans, and then I think was it a loan move at first to Wolsey?
Yeah, I went on loan for a few games. Again, it was disappointing, because I wanted to be at St Albans. Like, I think St Albans were Ryman Prem, and I think Ardsley were Ryman Div 1 at the time. And I wanted to stay at St Albans. I wanted to kind of play games and get goals, but on the other hand, they were giving me like 2 minutes here and a minute here, and it was a case of just like,
wasn't enough.
I needed to play football. I needed to go and enjoy it. I wasn't enjoying it. I was just kind of just being there watching other people play football. So it was another experience, because again it's a little bit lower. It's a different teams, different games, different. Obviously, it's just another kind of thing to learn, and a way to learn. And as I said, the disappointment you have to learn about it and use it for the better. So it was good in a way.
Yeah. And then that move got made permanent.
Yep. In the summer, because I had, I think, Steve Castle and I think it was a guy called Steve Cook were the managers. And I think I was about 19 at the time, and they pulled me aside, like they had me in and just basically said, like, we don't fancy you. We're going in a different direction. So like, you're going to have to leave. And obviously, lucky enough, I'd gone to Ardsley previously, and I think Nicky Ironton was the manager, and he wanted me to go and join them. So lucky enough, I had a club to go to, and kind of carry on pursuing my dream from there.
And obviously you had a stint at Wolsey, and then so during your Wolsey career, was there one game that stood out?
I think there was two. We played Dagenham in the
that's what I was looking for.
The FA Trophy. So and for me, that I knew about Dagenham because at the time they were big kind of giant killers, and they'd beaten a few teams in the FA Cup over the years. So it was really exciting to go to Dagenham, like be in a stadium that actually I think they had probably about 1,000 people there. It was like the most people I've ever played in front of. And it was just like an amazing experience to kind of be on the same pitches like people I'd seen on like BBC in the FA Cup, and like playing against, like, I think some of them were full time at the time. So it's just like, it was just a great experience. We'd done so well. I think I set up 3 goals, and we drew 3-3 and took them back to Ardsley, and then we ended up beating them 4-2 at home. And I think I scored 2 goals that evening. So it was just like, it just kind of showed me that I could play at that level.
The reason I say that is because believe it, my dad was at that game.
Okay.
He was at the 4-2 game, and he when I said he's mentioned it before, but when I said to him that I'm getting you on, he goes, "Well, did you know that I was actually at that game?"
It was wonderful, like, to have that, because obviously Ardsley, I think we were like 200-300 people, and I think that night there was about 600-700 people maybe.
Yeah.
From my recollection. So to have that many people at that game, it was just like, and the noise, and obviously we'd done so well, we won to win the game. It was just amazing. Yeah. It was amazing. That was an amazing time at Ardsley.
Yeah, and then from that time, you obviously went to Dagenham and Redbridge. How long did you spend there?
2.5 seasons, I think I was at Dagenham for.
Yeah. So, talk to me about them. Was it sort of would you say it was easy going, because you said there's full time and semi-pro at the time, weren't there?
Yeah.
What category were you in at that time?
So at the time I was at Ardsley, I was at college, I was at home base, and I was playing football for Ardsley.
Yeah.
And because I was working towards going to Brunel University, and because I didn't know whether I was going to be a footballer or not, just because obviously the uncertainty, you just never know. So it's always worth having a backup plan. So then I joined Dagenham, but just as I joined Dagenham, I was going to kind of like my open day at Brunel University.
Yeah.
I went down there and looked around and had a look, and I knew a few of the lads who were full time at Dagenham. So I went and spoke to John Steele, the manager, and just basically said, "Look, I'm part time at the moment, but I'd love to go full time. Like, what is the opportunity? Like, is there an opportunity to do that?" And that's fine. That's not a problem. So we negotiated a different contract. So I ended up coming full time, which is amazing, because that was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a full time football player, and it was just an amazing thing going to training every day. Like, and at the time there must have been only about 8 of us who were full time. So there was only 8 of us in every day, other than the 2 days that the rest of the squad joined in.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I was 19, so maybe 20, maybe just done 21, maybe. So it was just like a real exciting time, like to be going forward, like playing in the conference, playing with a real like forward-thinking team. Like, still at the time started bringing in a lot of youngsters, kind of from lower leagues, and then it was just a really exciting period.
Yeah. So that must be, because not a lot of people like sort of understand that because I was talking to Linus, the boxer, yesterday, and it's sort of how sometimes people don't realise, just because you're a professional in the sport doesn't mean that you're going to be a millionaire. You don't have like a massive house. They have all this because people in League 2, they don't, and people in the Championship, there's only 2 leagues difference, but there's a massive difference between obviously the style of football and sort of like the pay.
Oh, huge. As you said, if you say to someone, I'm a professional footballer, like, if they don't really follow football and don't understand it, well, even if people do understand it to an extent, they don't realise, as you said, probably Premier League, halfway down the Championship, and maybe a few League One clubs. Like, if you stay there for a decent amount of time, you get paid money where you probably are very comfortable after football. But realistically, a lot of the boys play football for the love of it. They do get paid relatively well, but our career only lasts until we're 35, if you're lucky. So after that, you've got to go and find another job. You've got to kind of put your energy into something else. And as I'm finding now, because I'm kind of, I wouldn't say semi-retired, but I'm just semi out of the game. Yeah, it's difficult. I thought it wouldn't be as difficult transition as it has been. Like, you don't realise how kind of much you depend on football when it's been your whole life. Yeah, you kind of become institutionalised. It's like, in a way, you've been in prison. You kind of come out of prison and you feel like you need to be back in it because that's all you know. Yeah, and it's kind of the same with football. Like, you come out of life, and now I'm like looking around, and I should have done this years ago, but I'm like, wow, like, I had a structure every day. I was in training. I'd train from 9 till 3. I'd come home. I'd go and play games. So I had a structure for my life, and now it's like I don't have a structure. So it's now trying to find things to put in place in my life that create a structure so I can kind of move forward.
Yeah. Do you think lockdown has made that easier or harder?
It's kind of like twofold for me, because when I got a letter off a contract in August last year, so when my contract finished with Wickham, it was last year, and they brought in a salary cap into the leagues. And then all the clubs, and obviously with COVID and everything at the same time, all the clubs kind of basically just went, no, we're not signing anyone. Like we need to spend the money, and obviously it stopped me from finding a club in the league.
Yeah.
And then obviously it just became harder and harder. And lucky enough, I know people at Bedford Town, so it was great to get a contract there because I still want to play. I still feel like I have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's maybe given me the kick up the backside that I needed to focus on stuff, because if I'd done another year in the league, would I have looked at kind of setting businesses up and doing other stuff outside of football, or would I have left it another year? So it's not the most ideal time. It would be better to do it without a pandemic, so I wouldn't have the pressures and everything else of going around it.
Yeah,
but
of course.
It's kind of like, if I can deal with it now, I can deal with it anytime. So
yeah, no, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, but I didn't know that. I didn't know about the salary cap, and that must have that's hindered your career. But then it's you got to look at it like, well, obviously I couldn't find a club, but then you've got to think, well, but then I've realised that I should maybe look at my life after football.
Yeah. When you're in football, you don't really it's stupid to think, but you never think it's going to end. Like you think it's like, I'm just going to keep getting a contract year on year, and then when I kind of get towards the end, then I'll know what I want to do, and it'll be really easy to do it, and that'll be fine. But in hindsight, I wish I'd have done this kind of 5-6 years ago, set something up where it could have just rolled into when I've come out of it. But as you said, it's like, I'm very much a believer of things happen for a reason.
Yes. Yeah.
And I believe I've been put in this position, like all the options that I wanted to have to stay in the league weren't available. So I'm meant to be in the position I'm in now. For what reason, I don't quite know yet. It's just with life, you work your way through it, and you end up finding the place you're meant to be.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, but so I see. I was listening to the Peter Crouch podcast, and I think they mentioned, I think, Gary Neville. Gary Neville didn't know how to make a cup of tea after he retired from football, which for someone like me, I thought, what? Like, but then I've read that Crouch was saying like how, I've never bought a pair of boxers. Kitman always supplied stuff like that, and it's just that.
Yeah, the higher you go, the more you're looked after. Like the guys at the top level, like they don't want them worrying about what kit they've got to wear, where their boots are, all these different things. They don't want them to have that worry in their head. They want them to just solely focused on training and playing games and winning games. Like it's not as much as you go down the leagues, but there's still obviously a focus on the most important thing is football and making sure that the boys have got everything that they need to play the games. So it's like, as you said, you become institutionalised. You become so used to a way of living. When you come out into the real world, it's a completely different.
A bit of a shock.
Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of players, like, they end up with alcohol abuse or all different kinds of things, because it's a coping mechanism. As I said, like for me, it's been a real shock, and I didn't expect it to be as much as a shock as it has been. But again, it's just something I've got to kind of work through, and say I've been put here in this position for a reason. So it's just moving forward from here.
Yeah. Quick question, and I don't know how it just came into my head, but could you play in the football league again if you're given the opportunity? Do you still think that you have obviously the talent? Because obviously you're not, when players get old, you won't be as fast as you used to be, but obviously, like you said, experience is massive for especially for clubs who have younger players. Do you think you could offer something?
I think if I had a good kind of pre-season, few months from now, because my league stopped in December, so I haven't played for 2 months.
Yeah.
But I feel if I had if I work from now, which we are, say, beginning of March, until kind of August when the season starts, I think I could put myself in a great position, in great shape. I do feel still I've got a lot to offer.
Yeah.
But I also understand that I'm 37 now, and as much as I've got experience, clubs are now looking at a bit of a different direction. They do want a little bit of experience, but they're very much happier to have young players pick the experience up as they're playing, rather than have experienced players in the team. So I'd love to be playing in the league again, but I think my path is a different one from that.
Okay, well, don't worry, mate. You don't look a day over 36, mate. So
Thanks. It was only my birthday the other day, so
happy birthday, mate.
cheers.
So going back to your career, then I think from Dagenham you went to Peterborough.
Yeah.
Right. And now, from an outsider looking in, it looks like from that and Brighton, Peterborough was sort of your golden time because obviously at Peterborough you won League One Player of the Year.
Yeah.
At one point. So would you say Peterborough? I mean, you can't pick favourite. It's like picking a favourite child, but would you say Peterborough was your favourite time as a pro?
Yeah, I think so. I think what separated me having just a good time at Brighton was probably my mentality. Like, I went from Dagenham, then I joined Peterborough, and I was only 23, but I was kind of very naive. I didn't care if I made mistakes.
Yeah.
I was just euphoric of actually like playing in a league. Like, it was like I just played every game and trained every day like it was going to get taken away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I trained and played, and I think that's why I done so well, because I didn't worry if I went through 10 one-on-ones and missed and all these other things. So I just focused on myself, and I just focused on what I was good at, what I could get better at, and I just hammered at that. And then when I joined Brighton, I think my mentality shifted, which probably, again, as I said, it wasn't ideal, and it's probably not helped me at that time. I obviously got bought for quite a lot of money.
Yeah, was the price tag sort of a reason?
Yeah, I think I just felt like they bought me for such a lot of money, so it was like, right, I've really got to prove myself now.
Added pressure.
Yeah, I've got to score loads of goals, and I've got to take them to the Premier League, and I'm so close to the Premier League now, and it all became more. Instead of it being relaxed and it just being carefree, it just became a lot more tense. And so if I was at Peterborough and I didn't score for a couple of games, I'd never really gave it a second thought. I didn't really care how many chances I missed, or if I hadn't scored for 5 games, because I knew sooner or later it would change. Whereas with Brighton, I think because we were so close to the Premier League, and because the club was obviously pushing on, and it was in a new stadium, and there was 30,000 people, it just became. I think I ended up putting more pressure on myself. I think if I just relaxed, because looking back at it, at one point I started the championship season, I think I had 8 goals in 11 games.
Yes, you went through that spell where because I watched an interview with when you I don't think you were at Brighton at the time, but you did an interview for Brighton TV, and you said I think you sort of relaxed at sort of that time.
Yeah,
and that's where you had that sort of that start. But was that sort of the time where you scored that overhead kick?
Against Burnley.
Yeah.
That was like that season. So I started pretty well in my first season, and then I only ended up scoring 10 goals. But I started well when I was relaxed, and then I got a bit more uptight, and I didn't finish great. Yeah. And then the next season, I was so relaxed, and I was literally on fire. And I can remember I ended up pulling my hamstring against Millwall away, and then. It was like the team wasn't doing so well, and it was like, right, I've got to get back. And then
so put a lot more pressure on yourself.
Yeah, and I got back in, and then I was like, right, I've got to score these goals. Like I was on fire before, now I've got to be on fire again. And then obviously you don't score for a game, and then you get more uptight, and then don't score for another game, and then people will say, no, like what's happened, and then it's kind of the pressure multiplies, and more that in the pressure from me rather than the pressure from the fans, like my expectations, my disappointment, as I say, when I look back at it, I'm really good friends with Adam Alab, so we were together at Brighton at the same time, and when we spoke recently about it, he was just saying like I was on absolute fire at the time, like I was playing so well, and he just said like, and in my head it was like I was playing really bad, and I wasn't doing what I needed to do. Like I still ended up scoring. I think I scored 11 goals in like 22 games that season before I ruptured my Achilles. So I was still doing really, really well. It was just in my head, I got to the point like that I was
do more.
Yeah, and I wasn't doing enough, and I should be scoring every game or every other game. And I think that, as I said, I think that played a major role in why I got injured as well. Because again, I believe in like positive thoughts and negative thoughts, and I had so many negative thoughts at that period of time that I think they all manifested in me rupturing my Achilles.
Yeah. But I think it was either from Peterborough to Brighton. Someone did a scout report on you, and in that scout report, I just want to read this quote. It was a rampaging Nordic Viking with long blonde hair.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair enough to describe you?
Yeah, at the time I was like I had highlighted hair and it was a lot longer than it is now, and I think that period of time when I was at Peterborough, I was just like I was right in my prime of like I was hitting the gym really well, and I was exactly where I wanted to be with doing the stuff in the gym. I did a lot of work with Mark Robson, who's assistant manager at Peterborough now. A lot of finishing work with him. So there was a lot going into like my game, but it was right where it needed to be. It was like I think I was right on the point of like injury or not injury. Like I was that finely tuned, and also I was so driven that season because in the January Norwich came in to buy me. Okay. They were absolutely flying at the time. They were like, I think they were top of the championship, or they were very close to going up, and the chairman kind of turned that bid down, which was disappointing because obviously they went on to get into the Premier League that season.
Yeah. Would you say you were like? Did you hear about it then? Did you sort of? You didn't want to kick up a fuss, but you also thought like, well, in my career, obviously your goal was to play in the Prem. Were you gutted?
Yeah, I think like me as a character, and sometimes to my own detriment, I'm quite a laid back, and I don't want to cause a fuss and stuff like that. And it's like if I did go and cause a fuss and knock the chairman's door and say, look, I want to leave and stuff like that, like I don't know how that would play out. I don't know how comfortable I was with that. Like
it's just not your character.
Yeah, but I might have missed out a move to the Premier League because of that. So it's kind of like a sliding doors moment. Then as soon as they kind of turned that down. It was like, right, I'm going to get Peterborough promoted to the Championship, and then I'm going to move on to the next challenge.
Yeah, and that challenge was obviously Brighton.
Yeah,
and there's a massive turning point in your Brighton. I think it was. I want to say it was. I think Bristol.
Yeah.
Where I think in the interview you said you were talking to someone on the bus about injuries.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the same injury?
Yeah, Matthew Upson.
Yeah.
We had I wasn't really talking. I was kind of listening, and he was just basically said like the worst injury he's ever had was like he ruptured his Achilles, and it was really hard to get back from. And again, it is like as I said to you previously, I'm very much a believer of like positive and negative emotions or energy, and things that are meant to happen for a reason. And for me, that was a perfect storm because he spoke about his Achilles injury. I wasn't meant to play that day. I wasn't meant to be on the bench that day, and in meeting Ashley Barnes and Leia Joe are going to start, and Barnesy went down ill, so Gus changed the team and put me up front with Andrea Landi, and then I did it right on half time.
Oh.
So it was literally, it was just fate. It was just meant to be, as I said. Like you can't have
one thing led to another.
Yeah, you can't have the emotions in your head like I was having and have positive outcomes. Like it's just not possible. And like people may not think that your thoughts can actually manifest stuff in the real world, but they can. And for me, that was just a complete kind of all the negatives coming together. It was almost basically saying, like, if you don't want to move forward, then we're going to make sure you don't move forward.
Yeah. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but during that time, were you out for 15 months? I think it was.
Yeah, roughly. I think it's like 13, 14 months, maybe.
Which I mean, for anyone, I've only had like one serious injury. Is when I fractured my foot about 2 years ago, and I was out for like 2-3 months.
Yeah,
that was the worst for me. But going out for another 10 months on top of that, how did that sort of like affect your mentality?
It was difficult. It was like because I didn't realise at the time how serious like that was. I thought it was going to be 4 or 5 months and I'd be back.
Yeah.
And then they were like, that minimum is going to be 9 months. So it was real tough. Like it was, but also I kind of understood why it happened. So it was kind of like I appreciated all the thoughts I had to put me in this position, and I accepted how I thought, and I accepted the what's happened, and then it was kind of like just to get on with it now.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, the difficulty was I didn't realise how long it was going to last. I thought like 9 months I'd be back for the beginning of the next season, or before Christmas, and then I could crack on.
Yeah.
And it was hard as well because we missed out on automatic promotion by about 3 points, I think it was, that season, and we lost in the playoffs to Palace. It's like knowing that maybe if I'd have played a couple of games, I could have made a difference. Was
it what if?
Yeah, a real big what if. Like I can, like even now, I can see myself sitting on the bench, like behind the bench, watching the game at home to Palace and us losing, and it was just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it was these things happen in football, and you've got to deal with it. So I got my head down. It was just a real interesting process of like having to learn to walk again, having to kind of go through all of that kind of jogging, and I think halfway through, maybe 8 or 9 months through, I ended up having an issue with my ankle, which then kind of pushed the recovery back to about 13, 14 months. And it completely changed who I was as a player. Really, as I said, I was literally on the verge of kind of injury just because I was so finely tuned. But I knew exactly what I needed. I was sharp, I was powerful, I was strong. And then 13, 14 months in the gym is not ideal when you're not really running. And I ended up putting on kind of 5 to 6 kilos of muscle,
which obviously slowed you down.
Yeah, which made it more difficult. My running, the way I ran, and obviously the muscles, how they were being used around my Achilles, it was difficult. So it just kind of changed who I was as a player. So it was kind of like I come out of, before it, I was sharp and strong and quick and agile, and you come out the other side of it, and then I was a bit slow and I was a bit heavy and
Akinfenwa.
Yeah, not as big as him and strong as him, but yeah. And it was just it was hard to get my head around that, and then I think since then, the last few years, well, that was like, what was I, 30? So it's the last 7 years.
Yeah.
I've been fighting, trying to find who I am as a player and trying to kind of adjust my game accordingly, because I still had pace, but it wasn't as explosive as it was, and it was just kind of appreciating that I probably couldn't do everything I used to do, and which is really difficult as a player, because when you know what you could do or could have done, and what you could do at that point in time, it's really, really tough mentally.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, because obviously gaining all that weight, all that muscle, would obviously changed up your style of play, and when you go from not playing football to then gym, and then obviously doing your jogging, and then getting back up to speed, and then coming back and realising, well, I can't do this as well, but I have to do this now, and sort of changing your style of play. And I've seen throughout this interview, I've realised that mentality is sort of massive throughout your career.
Yeah.
Because when you're not mentally like there, then you as a footballer suffer.
Yeah. I think massively. They'd say, I think that's what I've done when I've done chats before. It's like everyone says, like, what is the biggest like thing people should work on, and it's this mentality. Like it doesn't matter how big, strong, quick, slow. Like if you've got the mentality, like a great mentality, you can overcome all those things. And when I was at my best, my mentality was like, I just switched off and allowed myself to do it, and I always backed myself. But when I was at my worst was when I allowed my mind to kind of start chatting to me and started putting thoughts in my head that didn't need to be there, that weren't there. That it was just putting it in my head, and maybe it was self-destructive. Maybe it was the fact that I was scared of success, or I was scared of failure. It's kind of like it's trying to work out what those are, and obviously in the future, if I can give people an insight or help into that, then that'd be great, because it's not a nice thing when you know you've got all the ability in the world. And sometimes you're your own worst enemy, and you can't get out your way to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I do hear that a lot of people saying, like, you are your worst enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because I do hear about like footballers, like mentality, like going down, because injuries I see play a big part in that, and so that they're not the players they used to be. But that's really interesting, because because like you said, when you more calm, when you're more calm, you don't really sort of not care about it, but you just sort of you miss a chance in training, you won't think about it, and you just go for the next one, and
Yeah, if you just appreciate it, yeah, definitely. If you just appreciate that moment, like, I think that's what kind of unstuck me a little bit again was the thinking of the future rather than being in the moment and playing it for the moment. It became like what should be happening in the future
yeah,
and what I should be doing in the future rather than just being in the moment and taking it for what it is. So it's as I said to you earlier, it's great to look at it now because I can look back and say these things. It hurts a bit. It hurts a bit to say these things because when I see players who are doing well now, it's like, oh, I could have been doing that and I should have been doing that. But also, kind of, I'm fighting to let it go because I can't carry it with me. I achieved an amazing amount in the game from where I come from,
yeah.
which is great, and that's what I should be appreciating rather than the stuff that I didn't actually achieve.
Yeah, no, that's a good way. That's a good way of thinking about it. Because obviously, come from St Albans into low results, I think Oldsley is the lowest you've went.
Yeah,
Yeah, and to go up to the Championship, and wait, if you look if some things changed, you could have played in the Prem.
yeah.
So from someone looking in, I think that's something you should be immensely proud of.
Yeah. It's how you look at it, isn't it? And
Yeah.
the older I've got and the more time I've had to look at it, that's how my kind of outlook's become. It's just hard when you're in it. You kind of you need someone to pull you out and take you 10 years down the line and say, look, this is what happens if you don't pull your head out your arse, basically.
Yeah. I've prepared some questions as well before we do it. It's sort of just simple questions you would ask someone.
Okay.
What was the hardest game you've played, and what was sort of the best game you played? Sort of a game you look at, you remember. Sort of like, I had my most fun. I did. It could be like the overhead kick against Burnley, that sort of thing.
I think I was lucky enough. I played against Spain, and I go like at that period in time again. I was doing really well, but I was still questioning myself a little bit. So obviously to come up against the best team in the world at the time, it was like, and am I going to fall on my face here? Like I'm representing a nation.
That was Scotland, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm representing Scotland. Like I've got the shirt on. Like it's on TV. Like it's like, am I going to fail here or am I going to succeed? And I think it was probably the first couple of minutes. I was really nervous, and it was absolutely baking. It was a night game, but it was just baking hot.
Definitely wasn't in Scotland then.
No. I don't get sun there. So it was like it was so hot, and so a couple of minutes in, just trying to stay in the game, and then I think I got the ball, or the ball went over the top, and I outpaced Puyol, and then I went shoulder to shoulder with him, and like knocked him away a bit. So then it gave me real confidence in that game.
Yeah.
And then like for the next the next kind of whatever however long the game lasted, I just felt like I was right in the zone, and the back four I think was Jordi Alba, Sergio Ramos, Piqué, and Puyol, and it was like I gave them the run around. I won a penalty. I could have had a couple of goals in another night, but it's just an amazing experience. And even after 20 minutes, I thought I was going to have to come off because I thought I was going to pass out because it was so hot. And when you play and your mouth gets all dry and you can't swallow any saliva, and I was just panicking more and more. I was thinking like, I'm going to pass out on this pitch. Like I'm going to fall down and I'm going to have to get carried off. But
then you put a masterclass against Puyol, then your confidence goes up a bit.
Yeah. And lucky enough, I got to half time and I just got a massive towel and I drenched it in the ice bucket and I just sat in a corner with it over my head. But it's just like, it was just an amazing experience. And to think back on it now and like all the little things that happened and kind of seeing all the fans, like there was tens of thousands of Scotland fans before the game, and it was just kind of what you work for. And it's that game was probably the best game I've probably ever played. Like that's how I should have played every week in, week out if I'd have just let myself.
Yeah. Would you say that was the hardest and best game you played into one? Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that I learned a lot in that game. Like obviously what world class players do, and like how they act and how they kind of receive the ball and treat the ball. And it was also like it gave me so much confidence. I think I went and must have done well after those few games when I went back to Brighton. And I think it's just like it was like that's how I need to play week in week out. But again, my kind of perfectionism took over. Instead of just being in the zone and playing, it was always like a benchmark. Like you've got to go back to this and play like this, and because you're playing against Spain, you've done so well. So now you're going to go and play against just say who was at the time, just say Leicester in the champ at the time. You've got to go and score a hat-trick now against Leicester because you played so well against Spain. So it was definitely the highlight of my career, and I learned a lot, both good and bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, putting against a masterclass against Puyol, and they come back to Brighton. Go, hey, do you see what I did the other weekend, lads? Do you see that?
Yeah. It's hard to say. It's amazing to look at, and I've got all the shirts and my Scotland shirts and everything. It's just it as I said, it's trying to let go of the past. It frustrates me because I know how much I left of myself, or how much I didn't allow myself to become the player I should have been.
Yeah,
that's the real difficulty. But again, it's the past. So I think, as I said, this period of lockdown and this transition into my next stage of football is allowing me to probably experience that, because once I actually find the niche or where I want to be, I hopefully will get to the point where it doesn't matter what happened in the past.
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned Scotland. Can you so obviously you're a Hertfordshire lad. You're from Watford.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me how your first cap came for Scotland?
So my nan on my dad's side is Scottish.
Yeah.
So when I joined Peterborough, I had a chat with Barry at the time, and he was like very fry, and he was like, "Can you qualify for any other nations?" Right? And I said, "Well, my nan's Scottish, and if the opportunity come about, I'd love to play for him." Mm-hmm. And I think at the time the manager was George Burley, and I think he may have put it to him, and I don't think anything came of it.
Yeah.
So I never thought of anything again. And then obviously the season that I left Peterborough, I was on fire, scoring goals left, right, and centre. And I got a phone call from Barry saying that Scotland, they want to call me up to play against Brazil. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, they're playing Brazil at the Emirates. Like, you'll get a phone call from Craig Levine, and he'll explain everything. And so I think we played Milton Keynes, Bristol Rovers away. And he rang me after the game and had a chat with me. And then I think we played Milton Keynes, and then I went down to meet the teams. I think the game was might have been on a Saturday. That's the most nervous I've ever been, like going down to meet the Scotland team, because at the time I was in League One and most of them were playing in the Premier League or maybe at the top of the champ. So it was like me, like coming again, like a lad coming from kind of non-league, to be in the Scotland squad, and just I've never felt so sick and so nervous in my life meeting everyone. But lucky enough, I got there, and I think we did a training session at the Emirates, which was great fun, and they were a great bunch of lads. They were really accepting and got involved. And then to kind of go to the Emirates, see all the crowd and like the Brazilian fans and the Scotland fans and the flags, and then see the kit hang up with my name on it. It was mind blowing. It was just amazing. And being out in Emirates, seeing like I think Neymar was there, and David Luiz and Thiago Silva and all these people, David Alves. It was just like, wow, like this is just surreal. But then to kind of sit there, watch the game, and then kind of come on for the last 5 minutes, it was just amazing. It was just such an amazing experience. And lucky enough, my nan and all my family, my partner, everything, they were all at the game. So it was just like it couldn't have been any better for me.
Yeah, I mean, MK Dons to Brazil is sort of. I mean, I don't think you can get a bigger jump in football.
No, it was two different classes of football. Like I think we drew 0-0 that day against MK, and then I think we lost 2-1, and I think Neymar scored 2 goals.
You can't be sad about that, though, can you?
No. Watching him play, I think at the time he must have been 18. and he was just like ridiculous. Like he was just unbelievable. So it was just like, yeah, just to kind of see what League One football was, and then to see what the best in the world are like. It was amazing.
I mean that leads me on to my my next question, because who is the hardest player you've played against, and who's the best player you've played with?
I think throughout the leagues, I think the highest defender I've really played against was either Wes Morgan. Was always really difficult to play against because he was strong. Yeah, he was quick. He had good positioning. Like he was always a real tough defender to play against. And then played against Koscielny when he was at Arsenal, and didn't realise how quick he was playing against him. So they're probably the two of the toughest I've played against. The best, oh wow, been very lucky to play with some real great players, like Sean Maloney. Who else have you got? Like James Morrison was a great. Darren Fletcher.
Yeah. You said Ashley Barnes as well at Brighton. He's now in the Prem.
Barnsley done amazing because I joined Brighton, and he's done fantastically well for their promotion winning season. And then I kind of joined, and we had a great partnership together. Really, we were doing pretty well. And then I think Leo Ajoa came in, and he became the number one. And then and Barnsley wasn't really getting much game time, so he moved to Burnley, and he's done fantastic. I'm absolutely over the moon for what he's achieved. He's gone on. He's become their main striker. He's scoring goals regularly in the Premier League. So it's fantastic to see.
You were just a better Chris Wood, though, weren't you?
yeah. We had a good partnership. We had as I said, with my mentality, if it was a little bit different, I think we would have had a great partnership, and I think we'd have scored a lot more goals together. And I think we'd have achieved a lot. As I said, we enjoyed our time there. Obviously, he wasn't involved as much, and he went on, and he kind of didn't allow that disappointment of not being at Brighton to hinder him, and he's made that adversity into a massive positive.
Yeah. And now, so when you were at Brighton, I think wasn't it Sami Hyypiä? He came in.
Yeah.
And is that when you sort of struggled?
Yeah, it was tough. I came off, obviously, I'd come back in the April maybe of the previous season, so I'd only kind of got a couple of months of not even really playing. I didn't really play a full game. I came on about 4 or 5 times, and then that summer it was kind of get fit, try and get myself fit from the injury. And then give myself a best chance the following season. And obviously Oscar Garcia left and Sammy came in, but it was so tough because I hadn't played for 13 months. Then obviously we had a summer break, and then we're back at it. I was just trying to find who I was as a player. I needed to play games regularly because I needed to get the fitness back, the sharpness back. I needed to kind of lose the muscle bulk by playing games.
Yeah. And
you only kind of get your sharpness and your football brain back properly when you're playing games. But I played a couple of games under Sammy, and it was okay. And then the team we weren't performing very well. So he kind of brought in different players. I think he brought in Darren Ben, which is not a bad guy to bring in.
Yeah.
And he kind of said to me that you're not really going to get much football. So, which was disappointing because I don't feel I got a real good chance, and I think the more games I played, I feel the better I would have got. But I obviously went back to Peterborough because I know the club, and it was just maybe it was a safe move. Maybe I could have probably gone to the Championship and done that, but I ended up doing a safe move to Peterborough. I played there 2 or 3 times, and in that period of time, Sammy got sacked, which it's a shame really because his tenure started off great. He came in, and his football is very much how Liverpool play now. And I think, like I've said previously to people, his football was ahead of the time. He was ahead of the curve. He came in and he wanted both our fullbacks to get on high. He wanted the 2 centre midfielders to drop in as a box, and kind of very much how Liverpool play now. And we played Leeds United away at Ellen Road, and we had 70% possession.
Jesus.
We won 2-1, and it was like we were like Barcelona, and it was like, oh my God, we're going to walk the league. It was ridiculous. And then teams started to figure out what we were doing, and I don't think at that time we had the greatest of squads and the greatest of players to play how he wanted to play.
Yeah, the consistency.
Yeah, so only over time it didn't work, and he left at Christmas, and I think Nathan Jones came in. He brought me back to play a few games, and then he stepped back, and Chris Hughton came in, and it was very, very difficult because we were battling relegation, and we were playing kind of 4-5-1 regularly. We weren't really creating any chances, so as a forward, it was such a hard period of football, and again coming off of a long, lengthy injury and like kind of playing here and there, it was never going to work because I couldn't get into a rhythm to get my kind of old self back.
Yeah, I mean, going from that like that high press, that sort of a fast passing football of Sammy, to then going to the 4-5-1 of Chris Hughton. Obviously you can see in why he did it, and Chris Hughton is a very accomplished manager. But I think going from that sort of not unsettled the squad, but they sort of have to sort of adapt very quickly.
Yeah. Obviously, the main aim was to keep the club in the division. Like that was his ultimate goal, and if that meant kind of sacrificing exciting forward play and expansive forward play and going forward and trying to score goals and just keeping clean sheets, then that was the case. And as I said, for the attacking players, it was very, very difficult. I think Lewis Dunk ended up being the top goal scorer that season. Shows how bad it was for the forwards. But he's a great guy, Chris. Like he's obviously got on and he took Brighton into the Premier League.
Yeah,
that's the whole reason I joined the club, because ultimately I knew the club would end up in the Premier League. It had the vision, it had the resources, it knew where it wanted to go.
Yeah.
Obviously, sadly for me, it wasn't meant to be. I had that with Chris, and he just felt that I wasn't like where I used to be, how I used to be as a player, and he didn't feel like I was needed at the club anymore. I didn't have any I wasn't annoyed with him or anything, because I understood what he was saying. I may be disappointed with the way we've been playing, and maybe not kind of, I don't know, maybe kind of give me a chance for the next season.
Yeah.
I also understand how football works, and it was just at the time to part company, and it was a shame because I feel my 4 years there was okay. There was a lot more I could have achieved. I think the club saw me in fits and starts, never really saw the real consistent me of Peterborough, which is a shame. Like I feel there was so much I could have offered, but again, it's just these things happen. That wasn't the journey I was meant to be on. That wasn't my path. So it's you can't do much more than you can do in that situation at the time.
Yeah, and then after that, you headed off to Luton.
Yep.
Yeah. How so? I also you scored another overhead kick at Luton, but I as I was searching up, it was as their caption, the greatest disallowed goal of all time.
Yeah. I don't think it was disallowed. I think I was onside, but obviously the linesman was bored that day and felt like
felt like ruining it.
Yeah, but it was Luton was another tough time really. Like I think I jumped too soon. My manager from Dagenham still was there, and obviously we had a chat, and obviously Luton is a great club. It's a big club, and he told me what they wanted to do and what they wanted to achieve. Maybe if I'd have kind of just held off a bit and didn't jump straight in, then there might be enough opportunities at different levels. But I went there again to play regular football, to try and get myself fit and push myself back up the leagues.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite happen there. I did okay-ish. I had another serious injury. I broke my ankle when did I break my ankle? Like March time. Mm-hmm. And I was out for 8 months with that injury. And then in that period of time, Nathan Jones had come in. And also we had good forwards in Jack Marriott, Isaac Vassell, Danny Hilton.
All Championship strikers now.
Yeah. It was disappointing because I felt like I'd done a great job. And when Nathan Jones come in, I ended up playing like right wing, left wing, like in a 10, a forward. I think I must have played so many positions for him. So it was just a shame that he never. And I understand that there's obviously they are great forwards, but he never really gave me the opportunity once I came back from being injured.
Yeah.
So again, I went back to Peterborough on loan. Grant McCann was a manager there at the time, and I played with Grant, and he's a good friend. So it was great for him, like the league above, to give me an opportunity. He could have quite easily said no because he's building his own thing. But he brought me in, allowed me to work with some good players, and I think I scored like 5 goals in 13 games, and I probably could have scored more if the season had carried on. Like another 10 games, I think I would have got to at least 10 goals easy. So it was really, really enjoyable. It was just a shame that at the end of the season, the chairman wasn't looking to bring me in. He thought I was a bit too old at the time.
Yeah.
And looked in a different direction, which is disappointing, really, because that season they brought in Jack Marriott, who I played with at Luton, and we had a real good relationship. And I think if we'd have stayed together, I think we would have created a real good partnership. But that again, it's all ifs and buts. Like I done well. I got up to 104 goals at Peterborough, so it's something I'm really proud of, and it was a kind of a landmark that I was trying to get before I retired.
Yeah, was that the season Jack Marriott was absolutely on fire? Was it that season?
That was before. So I joined. He was still at Luton. I left Luton.
Yeah.
And then the next season he joined Peterborough, and I went to Wickham.
Yeah.
And then that's the season he was on absolute fire that season. So and when we were at Luton together, we got on really, really well. We had a great relationship. We still do now. We still talk a lot. And it's just a shame. At that time, I felt like if the chairman would have kept me on at Peterborough, I think we would have created, with Marcus Maddison assisting, I think we would have created a real good like duo, to be honest.
Yeah, because I actually had a season ticket at Luton.
Okay.
But I think when I first got my season ticket was the season after they lost against Blackpool in the playoffs. Yeah,
that's the season I left.
Yeah. I came after that, and seeing that Nathan Jones is obviously me personally, I think he's close to becoming a Luton legend. For what he's done for the club, because he obviously took him from League 2 to the Championship, but then obviously in between that he had went off to Stoke, but we don't talk about that.
He's done fantastic. He was a good coach at Brighton.
Yeah.
He's obviously done really well. He's taken the club, as you said, through the leagues. Difficult the Stoke thing, because obviously it's a major opportunity at a big club.
Yeah.
Sometimes these opportunities don't come around again. So sometimes you just got to throw yourself at it and see what happens. Obviously, it didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
And lucky enough, obviously, you get a manager sometimes like Peterborough have with Fergie, that they're a match made in heaven, really. And
yeah.
He's come back, and the club are on a great run. They obviously they won again the other night, 1-0, and he's putting a great thing together. There's a lot of lads there that were there when I was there who were really young lads.
Yeah.
Like Glenn Ray, Pelly.
Yeah.
Danny Hilton still there. So he's built a fantastic team there, and he plays a great brand of football. So obviously for the club, it's just getting into a new stadium and kind of increasing that fan base and fans in the ground.
Yeah, and from there you went to Wickham, where they're also another club from League 2 to Championship. Yeah,
and I'm lucky enough I've been on that journey. Again, I played a bit and not been involved a bit, so it's been great. They're a fantastic club. It's been a real interesting journey, almost going out of business, and a new chairman coming in. I kind of got a phone call from Barry Richardson, who I know, who was a goalkeeping coach, and a real good friend of mine, Sam Saunders, was there. Adam Alab joined them. So it seemed a real good project. Like Akinfenwa, Marcus Bean, Nathan Tyson. So there was a lot of older players, But
Yeah.
when I met them all and had a chat with them, it was like every one of them still had something to prove. Every one of them believed they still had what it takes to play higher up in the division. So
Yeah.
it was a real exciting project. We were real underdogs because teams and the people didn't believe that we were going to do anything. They thought that we were going to get relegated. And our first season, we got promoted to League One.
Yeah.
Um,
It's an absolutely amazing story. What they've done, and
Yeah.
a lot of players. Obviously, it's a bit like Luton because they have like Akinfenwa from there for League Two, another I think Nick Freeman.
Yeah.
He isn't. I think he's from Aussie.
I don't, it might be. I know he's on loan at Leyton Orient. I think at the moment he's a great player. Like
Yeah.
the club's done, like they've still got a kind of 5 or 6 that have come through all the leagues with the club. It's probably one of the best or the best dressing room I've ever been involved in.
Yeah.
Like the mentality, there's kind of the siege mentality. Like no one can break us.
Togetherness.
Everyone wrote Wickham off. Like the first season we were there, we got promoted to League One. The second season, everyone thought we were going to get relegated, which we almost did. But at one point in January, we were 3 points off the playoffs, and then
It's just the up and down.
yeah, and then the next season, everyone thought we were going to get relegated again and got promoted. So it was that belief, like that belief drove that club forward, and I really hope they stay up because I think it's really disappointing that they've achieved that amazing achievement to get to the Championship and there's no fans in the stadiums. I think it's not right, and I'm praying that they can stay up because I want the boys to experience like what it's like to be playing in the Championship week in week out with 20, 30,000 people every week. If some of the lads may never have that opportunity again, and like the likes of Matt Bloomfield, who's been there 14 years, he deserves that. He's given his whole kind of life and career to Wickham, and as much as I think it's a real proud moment for him to be playing in the Championship, it's that real proud moment of having your family there and they walking out in front of 30,000 people at Pride Park or at these amazing stadiums.
Yeah, I think for a club like Wickham to do what they've done, it's amazing, and I do hope they stay up because they're a club that I wouldn't say that they're a second club, but I look at them and they sort of as a Luton season ticket holder, they sort of went on the journey with us.
Yeah.
They sort of because we went up and they went up and then we went up and then they went up and then obviously I think for a team like Wickham as well, they do get a lot of stick for the football they play, but it's how they've got there.
Yeah, it is, and the problem is with football, everyone expects football should be played a certain way, and that's not the case. It's like the whole point of playing football. Yes, you want to watch amazing football, but ultimately for a manager, it's winning games.
Yeah. And
Wickham have got a way of playing, and it may not be the most beautiful way of playing, but it's productive and it's successful. And what Gareth has done an amazing job there is that he gets players to buy into that, and he gets players who have got probably great footballing ability to go and do the horrible stuff and run around and rat about and do those kinds of things. So it's all credit to him, really, like his kind of recruitment and how he goes about it to put a team like that. And to be fair, as a manager, he's very good with the dressing room because he's very standoffish. He doesn't come in and get involved a lot. He's got 4 or 5 main people that are all different ages that he speaks to, and he'll get them all together and he'll explain what he sees and how he sees it. Then they'll go back and report it to the dressing room. Yeah. And then the dressing room polices itself. And I think that's a great way because it allows him to kind of stand off and allows the dressing room to kind of make sure that everyone's pulling in the right direction.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And from Wickham, obviously what we talked about earlier, with obviously the salary cap and how you found it hard to find the club. And you've ended up at Bedford Town because you knew people at the club. Yeah,
and I've known the chairman for a while now, and he's got a lot of ambition really to take the club forward, kind of both on and off the field. So it was a really interesting kind of project.
Yeah.
And I still want to play. It's close to where I'm based, so It's been great. Like I really enjoyed this season. It's been a real culture shock though, going from being in a dressing room with all your kit laid out, with your name on the back and your
Back
boots.
to St Alban days.
Yeah, going in there and it's like pick your numbers. Like all the kit's like extra large, so it's all baggy.
Yeah.
It's like it has been like a real kind of culture shock, but like it's also been great because it's kind of like what I was used to when I was kind of growing up. But it's just a shame because I think we would have got promoted this season. I think we'd played 8 league games, won 5, drawn 3, I think. So we were doing really well. We were putting a real good team together. But obviously everything kind of stopped. So, but as I say, hopefully next season they'll still want me to stay there. I still feel fit enough and good enough to play. And hopefully with the stuff that the chairman's kind of trying to look into build in the background, that hopefully I'll be able to have some involvement in that as well.
Yeah. It's been an absolutely amazing talk with you, but I've got 2 questions to leave you off with.
Okay, no worries.
Question number 1 is management. Do you see yourself pursuing it?
Not so much, I don't think. I think it's a real minefield. I think management. I don't think I would do that side of it. I love kind of if I was to do anything, it'd be kind of away from a football club or kind of like going in and out of football clubs.
Yeah.
Having people come to me. I think more. I want to do kind of striker coaching.
Oh yeah.
A bit like a superior striker that works with England and does stuff like that. I'm very much into that, and I'm very much into my kind of like my PT stuff, like how to kind of get the 1% out. So it'd probably be like a combination of the two, combining that, and then maybe if clubs wanted me to go in and work with their strikers and stuff, then I'd do that rather than like kind of be beholden to a club, because there's lots of politics that go on. It kind of everything can change on a whim, and sometimes
creates good opportunities.
Yeah, when you're kind of forward and you're doing your shooting practice in training, it's like you have about 20 people joining, and it loses its all seriousness. Where I want people to come to work with me who want to work with me, who come kind of to improve, and I don't want to be at a club where it just becomes a joke. Like it's just like, oh yeah, we just go and do some shooting for fun. I want it to be like meaningful.
Yes, yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, that's good way to think about it. Is that sort of like the business side that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I think it's the stuff I'm looking at now. I'm not too far from completing my PT course, and probably a couple of months away. So that's nice to have. And the striker stuff, I was meant to kind of go into Peterborough and do a bit of work with them, but obviously that's kind of been put on the back burner with everything that's going on.
Yeah, but still there to.
Yeah. They said I can go in and do stuff like learn stuff and watch and go and do stuff with the youth team and just kind of practice. And I've got a few friends, like I've got Jack Marritt's still a good friend, and a few of like the Wickham boys who like might want to do stuff, but it's kind of like I just got to get it sorted first and then worry about all of that later on down the line.
Yeah, no, that's really good, mate. But I've got last question to leave you off with.
Yep.
How do you want to be remembered?
I think just someone who gave everything to the game. I think every time I played, I run my heart out, and I tried to play every game like it was my last. Like I wanted to, like, kind of